Okay, so let's talk about naming and classification of viruses. So first of all, I would like to say that viruses are not named according to the binomial nomenclature method, right? You know that you name the animals or different plants, different living organisms by the two name, the species name and the genus name. But this thing is not happening for the viruses. So what basically binomial nomenclature basically means the naming system. Binomial, bi means two, nomial means two names. So this method is not applied for the viruses. So if you will ask me a question, then how viruses are named? So let me tell you one thing, that viruses are named because of a random fashion, like whatever the disease they cause, according to the disease causing phenomena, they are named. So if you want to name some viruses, like let's say that poliomyelitis virus, then why it is named poliomyelitis? Because it caused the disease polio. Or if you want to ask me that why viruses are called bacterial viruses, because they are bacteriophages, that they eat bacteria. Bacteriophages are basically the viruses, so you name them bacteriophages. And plant viruses, we used to call the name as plant viruses, or sometimes we call them as animal viruses. And some coded system is also used to name the viruses, like the T1 virus, the T2 virus, the P1 phages. So P1 phages, T2 viruses, or T1 phages or T2 phages, these are the names which we usually give to viruses. So you would say that we don't have a specific system to name the viruses, but somehow we do have that. We name some viruses according to the presence of DNA or RNA. We call them as DNA viruses or RNA viruses. Sometimes we name them or classify them because of the symmetry of capsid, or sometimes we name them because of their capsomeres. So you will be thinking that how we are going to name the viruses, right? The question remains the same. But I will let you know that we're going to use the conventional classification method, that we are going to name viruses according to the host cells. So that is the basic thing we want to learn in this lecture. Okay, so let me tell you the basic name of any viruses. So we call viruses as bacteriophages because we name them because of the cell they eat, right? So we call them as T2, T4, T6, or typically we call them as colon bacillus if they are feeding the colon bacillus, mean to say that it is the bacteria which is present inside the colon of our stomach. So they called as T2, T4, T6. They are basically the bacteriophages, right? And sometimes they are eating Escherichia coli, so that is why they named as bacteriophages. Sometimes they are eating the colon cells or colon bacteria, so that is why they are called bacteriophages. Even you can call Escherichia coli as a coliphages, right? So what you can say next to the naming viruses, so that is the way you deal it. When you just have a sample, that if you have one T4 virus in it, if you have a test tube, but it's not necessary that you're gonna have T4 phage only. You can have 100 T4 phages in it. That is what the Fred, that is a scientist, the Felder, basically in 1885 he write these things in his paper. So just talk about T4 phage. Basically it's a large sized tadpole shaped complex virus, and it do contain capsomeres, complex capsomeres or capsid you can say, and its shape is icosahedral basically, right? And that is the size of that virus. So short neck with a collar of bearing whiskers and long helical tail. Okay, let me show you that T4 phage bacteriophage to you. So this is the way it looks like, that is a T4 bacteriophage. So let me give you a hint. So this is the shape, and these are the basically they have been sitting on a basically the cell. This is called the E. coli. This is the bacteria Escherichia coli, and this is how they are sitting on on the, this is called the absorption phase, basically adsorption, right? You call this thing as adsorption. And we just really want to learn the life cycle of this virus. How does it go for it? And you have learned this thing in the younger classes, that it go for the lytic phase and it go for lysogenic phases, and that is the cycles, the life cycles for any bacteriophage. So simply in this lecture we come to know that the viruses are named because of the host cells. They could be called as bacteriophages, or they could be called as some other polio viruses, because if they cause a disease we call them as a polio viruses. Nowadays corona disease has been very familiar we are with. So corona disease is just because of the shape of the virus. So there are three methods to name a virus. In this lecture I told you about the two methods, and third method is shape also describes the name of a virus. Corona is basically the shape, and virus the shape, corona shape. And the T4 phage is named as because of the cell on which it sit, and poliovirus is being named because it is causing the disease polio. Or there are many more traditional methods which we don't know today, but these are the most familiar one which I have been talking to you. So that's it for my today's lecture. I'm gonna get you back with a good time. Take care.